Ready?
No, not
I can't
yet.
see around my camera. I'm not ready. Totally not ready.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Live here on Keystroke Medium. It's season 3, episode 25. I am Josh Hayes, and I'm here with the 4 guys, well, the 3 guys and me, Chuck Manley, Ralph Kern, and Scott Moon. And it's going to be a good conversation today.
No, it's not. It's going to be a bad
No,
conversation.
we're gonna start out the conversation good, and we'll see how it goes.
Someone has poked the bear.
You misogynistic bastard, you.
Yes. Everybody in the live chat, hey guys, how are you? JR, he's been blowing up the live chat, I think, by himself.
What's that way? I was reading it.
JR has some shenanigan chat in the live chat all by himself.
He's talking to himself. It's awesome.
I don't.
We should have a most valuable player of every episode. JR would probably have like 50 plaques on his wall.
He probably would.
You know?
You could have like the platinum and then the gold, and
right.
like JR would have like 100 platinums lined up behind him. It's like
he's actually opened up a really good line of conversation. I think it might be worth touching on with the US Space Force thing. That'll be
with
awesome.
the Space Force. Yes, let's do that.
Oh, let's sign up. Wait, would you like to know more?
Would you like to know more?
I saw a meme today that was it had in one side it said U.S. military forces, and it said Air Force, Marines, Navy, Army, and Space Force, and then it had U.S. Armed Forces, like not military, and it was like Coast Guard on the other side. It was like really brutal against the. I don't know why everybody hates the Coast Guard.
You know, but that's tough because
I watched that Kevin Costner film. I love the Coast Guard.
That's true. The swim divers.
The funny thing is the Coast Guard is one of the hardest branches of the services to get into their officer academy, because you have like a PhD in friggin' oceanography or something to get in there, but.
And you've got to swim a long way.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, well, we'll jump right into it. I said that I had a rant, and I'm going to rant.
I think we should take a vote first on whether or not you should continue with this rant.
Okay, let's take a vote. Let's be democratic.
Live chat. Do you want to hear Josh?
Everybody, if you want to hear Josh rant, say aye. If you don't want to hear Josh's rant, say nay.
I am typing it in the live chat.
Nay, rant, aye. So we have one aye. We have an
we have
2 eyes.
Go on, man. Two eyes.
Yeah. The eyes have
caps. Rant it.
So here's the rant.
Oh, you misogynistic bastard, you.
Yeah, exactly. This is our show, and I've got the mic, so I'm going to say what I need to say, and then we'll be done with it and move on to more happier times.
I doubt it. So I'm sure the linger, fester, and bleed out
like a scab that just
not going to happen.
At it. So. If you don't know, a couple of friends of mine and myself started a podcast about the Wheel of Time, and it was kind of clickbaity when I thought about it. That when I said we're going to talk about Wheel of Time and sexism, but that's basically the point of my rant. So we started this podcast called Watchers, WOTCHERS.com. Basically, Hank had a thread in his, I want to say it was his Author Stories podcast, or maybe it was personal Facebook, where he's talking about finding another fantasy book to read. And there was a whole bunch of options thrown out, and somebody mentioned the Wheel of Time. And long story short, Hank was like, yeah, I'm going to read that. And does anybody want to read it while I'm reading it? And so I was like, yeah, why not? I'll read it with you. And so was... So his pen name's Jamie Castle, but we'll call him Steve because I get confused. Steve also said yes, I'll read it. And so we just talked about it. And we said, are we listening to an audiobook, or are we reading it, or what are we doing? Do we want to stay around the same book where we're reading? And yeah, let's read it together, because Hank had read a couple of the books. I think Steve read a couple of the books. I had not read any. And I was interested in them because, as everybody knows, I'm a huge Sanderson fanboy, and Sanderson wrote the last 3.
Wait, what? And you're a Sanderson?
I know, it's a big surprise to everyone. I love
I don't know what you're talking about.
So during this conversation, we decided, hey, wouldn't it be neat if we read the books and then talked about it and then made it into a podcast, right? And that's the entire basis for the show. Is I've never read it. They've read it, never finished it. And we are friends, so let's read it and talk about it, right? So we talk about it for a couple of days, figure out kind of the logistics of what we're going to do, and we start listening to the book, in our case, because we don't have much time to read it. We're listening to the audiobook. And we published our first episode on Tuesday of last week. And I can't remember which day we posted this.
On Reddit.
A couple days ago, we posted this on Reddit. Our hey, here's our first episode. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to the Lord of the Rings and how that kind of filtered through a lot of the fiction of that time. The first episode is the one where Gandalf comes to Two Rivers. And another side to that is we were having a discussion about Friends at the time. And if you know anything about Friends, all the episodes are titled The One Where or The One When or whatever, right? So the first episode is called The One Where Gandalf Comes to Two Rivers. There was a lot of discussion about this, and they were like, it doesn't have anything to do with Gandalf, and of course it influenced by Lord of the Rings and all this other stuff. But great interaction by a whole bunch of people.
Lots of engagement from the people on Reddit, though. I mean, lots of engagement.
Right? Yeah, lots of positive engagement. And then we get down to a couple of posts, and this is where the meat of my rant is going to come into. So, if you don't know, Steve and Hank and I are all guys.
What?
All male.
What?
You were unaware of this particular fact.
Those names are so feminine.
So
I think Josh is probably one of the most feminine names I know.
Yeah,
that's obviously true. So that will come back to haunt us. So one of the posts was, who are the three authors? And so we posted Jamie Castle, Hank Garner, and Josh Hayes, which somebody was confused on how to spell my name. I don't know how you can confuse it, but whatever.
But spelling?
So then,
common spelling.
Then the very first response to this is, quote, geez, you think they'd have thought to invite a female author as well, given how significant and progressive the series is for women in fantasy. Feels like they're inevitably going to miss a huge part of leaving out that perspective to me. So we were like, well, we didn't think of inviting one because it was just three dudes sitting down to talk. Completely random. So Steve and I both signed in, and we were like, hey, so that wasn't even the point of what we were doing. We haven't talked about having guests. We haven't really kind of talked about the show. We just said, hey, let's read the books and talk about it. But apparently this guy didn't like that we didn't invite a female. Well, then another guy got on there and had like a 5-paragraph thesis on why we should have had a female on our podcast, and that because we made it public, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're diverse in our presentation of the material. And so we were like, again, that's not the point of this podcast. The point is to just talk about it as friends and tell each other what we like a book and whatever, right? So then another guy gets on there and says, so basically you're saying that you don't have any female friends that you could have invited on the show. And
that's true, actually.
Right. And because you're being defensive about it, this person is convinced that we're sexist because we're defending our original show because someone decided that we were sexist. We're defending that, and now we're even more sexist. So that kind of devolved into you guys are like horrible people. You attacked me and you're sexist and you're horrible and blah, blah, blah. We're never going to listen to the show again and whatever. So my thing is, first of all, I'm done with Reddit. That's ridiculous.
Which I think is really just a good general life rule.
Yeah.
For pretty much everyone.
The second thing is, that was the thing. I said, we didn't set out to do this So you're assuming that we did this intentionally to be sexist. Like, we're excluding all females in our podcast.
Hey guys, what can we do to be sexist?
Right. But the fact that we didn't think ahead to interpret what other people would think about the podcast definitely means that we're racist, because we did not.
Sexist, you meant.
Whoa. How are you
Sexist.
now?
I meant sexist.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Josh, can I just ask, what ethnicity are all three of you?
Yeah, there we go. Let's start that all up, bro. There we go.
Hey, shall I? I'm going to post on this Reddit. I think they're all white guys as well.
Three white guys were definitely in the wrong, right?
Probably all middle-aged too, as well.
But so it's crazy that because we didn't think to include women in our podcast, we're sexist now because we didn't anticipate that. Whatever. I'm about to wrap it up. I'm just going to say, the whole point of our show was we're three friends who just happen to be male. We just happened to say, hey, let's read the Wheel of Time and talk about it. Because we did that, now we're sexist. I don't know how we made that leap. These I know they say don't listen to the trolls, don't read the bad reviews. There was a lot of positive interaction on this board that I thought was really neat. There was some people that really got it. Like some people that were like, oh yeah, this is going to be fun because I haven't read the series in a long time. I'll go back and see, what I thought about it when I first read it. And, we said several times, and granted, this is the introductory episode. Like, this is just us introducing who we are and what we want to do with the show and kind of how we're going to talk about the series. We know nothing. And that's the point, is we don't know anything. And a lot of these people are mad that we don't know anything about the series and we're doing a podcast about it.
I listened to the episode, and if you say very clearly that you want to learn about this book and why it's such a foundational piece in fantasy,
right?
All those things like that. You don't claim to know everything about it, and all that. And when I first heard you talk about this topic, my thought was, that sounds really cool. Some friends want to read a book together. I never thought about it with all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, and
it's on par with when we did that book club idea, which we've only done the event, haven't we, so far?
We need to do more books.
But are we suddenly sexist for wanting to talk about that when we don't have a female presenter, although we have female contributors to the show who are more than welcome. Now, personally, my view is that I'm quite sort of right on. I like to think of myself as, but I do think I exist in a post-ism idealism, if you get my meaning. I feel like I shouldn't have to consider those things because we're beyond those things. Now, I know in reality we're not, but that's how I want to be, and that's how I want to portray, and that's why I think it's important to normalize it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if this was three, like I said in the pre-show, if this was three women that sat down to read a book, we would not be having this conversation, and they would be being praised as these groundbreaking people to do a podcast. I don't care if three women talked about it or three dudes talked about it. As long as it was a good podcast, I'd be down. Like that,
exactly.
So
But you have to remember, there are some people out there that are just looking to.
They're looking for a fight.
They're looking for a fight. They're looking to shove their worldview down everybody's throat. You just happen to come across one of them. I had a similar experience recently with a book review. So, I mean, it's just, you got to kind of have to go, yeah, fuck you, and get on with your life.
Indeed. So on that note, let's say cheers to telling Reddit to go suck a big fat one and move on with
Reddit.
The enjoyable show.
So long, Reddit. We'll enjoy being post your kind of bullshit.
And I'd like to apologize to everybody watching the show that we didn't consider anyone else when we hosted the show.
And I'm very, very, very sorry there are no females on our panel tonight.
No, Ralph already said I was female.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, you've got an effeminate name, so
hold on. I've got to whip my hair.
Jocelyn. I mean, it kind of fits.
Well,
and then drop my headphones.
I'll say one thing about this topic, and then I'll let it rest, because we could talk about this all day, obviously. But the thing is I was raised among a lot of strong women. My mom's an awesomely strong woman. I respect and love, all that stuff. But it irritates me that people will look at me, not know me, not talk to me, and assume I think a certain way. And that's not true.
Well, that goes back to our we had coffee the other day at a new. We found a new our primary coffee spot shut down, and so we had to find a new one. We found a new one. It's really legit. It's really nice. It's really modern or whatever.
Refill thingies.
Yes, yeah, yeah. We took a couple pictures there, right? Yeah, so it's pretty neat. Their coffee's really good. They're really friendly. Food was decent. And so we get there first time we get there, we sit outside, and there's another customer that's sitting outside, and she's reading a book over on
which
the side.
We thought was awesome. Look, a reader,
reader
in the wild, a real live reader reading a book at the coffee shop.
This is
an actual paper book.
This is a letter-spotted reader.
It was awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, look over there.
The mating call of the letter-spotted reader.
So we're sitting there, we're talking about books, and we're talking about writing or whatever, and she's over there reading, and we eat, and we don't talk to her at all. And she gets up and she leaves, and she says, see you later. Well, about halfway through our time there, while she's sitting there, I see her pull out a little business card. She's writing on it. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, she's writing a lot on that business card. And maybe she's going to walk by and like drop it on the table, like some kind of sly deal, but she didn't. She left, right? Well, the very next day we go back there and we sit down on the inside, and Scott's like, hey, you'll never guess what I found on my cop car yesterday. And he pulls out the business note, and he slides it across the table, and I read it. And I'm gonna synopsize and paraphrase because I lost my mind. It says, please treat everyone regardless of race, sex, gender identity, blah blah blah, with the utmost orientation, with the respect they deserve, and treat everyone with dignity and protect our city equally.
Which we do.
Which I was going to say, isn't that sort of a foregone conclusion?
Which I've been doing for 21 years, and so
yeah, it goes back to you look at somebody and you're like, oh yeah, these are a bunch of racist cops right here.
Obviously, I'm racist because I'm a white guy.
Right. So, like, this whole week has just been a whole crazy, like, assumption-filled, crazy thing that it's.
Well,
next week's.
My personal opinion is I think you guys are in one of those professions that is incredibly susceptible to the one bad apple rule.
Right.
Like if one guy does some shit he shouldn't have done, they're just going to automatically assume everybody.
And I can talk.
Well, and on that note, I mean, you're exactly right. But if you ask any cop what they hate the most, or one of the things they hate the most, the response will be a dirty cop. And
right.
I believe that.
Those guys.
But for us, I can only speak from my side of the pond, but I would suggest it's the same as yours. A dirty cop is like considered in the same sentence, the same breath, if you would consider a paedophile or a rapist, something like that. That is the level of the animosity that we feel for dirty cops. So. Yeah. Whilst I am saying there are them out there, unfortunately there are
for sure. Yeah.
The people who hate them the most are not the general public; they're their own.
So I'm not trying to turn this into a pity party for keystroke.
Let me wrap this one up. Since the card was put on my car and I read it, because I'll tell you a quick story about that. So I see that card when I pull away from there, I see that the business card is on underneath my windshield wiper, and because I'm obviously a go-to kind of get things done kind of guy, I go, I need to get that business card off my windshield wiper. And then I go to a call, and then I go to another call, and then I go to another call, and I'm just driving all over the city. And every time I start driving, I'm like, that business card.
Did you try and get the windshield?
All right. And so
you are a racist, sexist kid.
All right, but I can't.
You're a racist and a procrastinator, Moon.
Yeah,
I think the procrastination is worse.
Unorganized. So here's the funny part. So I get all. No, actually, it's not funny. It's kind of sad. But so we go through all these things, and I get to this call, and it's like the 5th call after this. I've been driving all day in the heat, and we go to this call that's because as a supervisor now I have to go to all dead bodies that don't happen in a hospital. So we get to this call, and this person has expired, and they've been in this unair conditioned trailer for 2 weeks.
Oh.
If you've ever been to something like that, this is not a good instance. So we get done with all that. We're doing all this stuff. I'm sitting out in my car, and the lab investigators come because I have them come and do all this stuff. And this guy who's a fairly serious, humorless individual walks up and pulls the card off my windshield wiper and hands it to me. Like, here you go, moving. So I read it, and so this is where I realize what it says. And the thing is most police officers I know became police officers because they wanted to do something that was important. You obviously wanted to have a job, but and because they don't like bullies or people that treat people unfairly. And that's why I do it, because I don't like people to be treated unfairly or victimized. I don't like the weak people to be victimized by assholes that think that they can just, throw their weight around and stuff like that. And that's why I'm a cop, is to help people who need help, especially people like, marginalized sections of our society. So I take treating everybody equally and protecting everybody fairly extremely seriously. It's like I've dedicated my entire adult life to it. And so then somebody doesn't even know me automatically assumes that I'm not doing that. Yeah. It's frustrating. But I wrote it off because do you think this is the first time I've had somebody say something like this to me or been called this or that or the other thing or whatever? So
like 21 years, man, you had to have gotten a lot of that shit.
Oh yeah, I've got some great. So one time when I was new, someone called me a jackbooted Gestapo thug, which I thought was actually fairly creative.
Reasonably educated too.
I like that one.
My next favorite insult that I've been called while at work was a square butt hootie patootie.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Which is also fairly accurate.
Which is,
there's a bit of alliteration in there.
I'm not quite sure where that came from. So anyway, I'm going off topic a little bit, but the point is that I wasn't actually mad that I got this card or anything. I was just kind of like, yeah, I expected that. I should have expected that. But here's the point I meant to say. Okay, is that you have to keep this in perspective. We're not complaining because the first time that day that happened, we went to have coffee. And we sat down to have coffee, and I was hungry, so I had a grilled chicken salad and a coffee, and God only knows how much that cost at this place. And Josh had, what did you have? Like some toast. And stuff, and the coffee, which was awesome, probably the best coffee I've had in years. And somebody paid for it. And I actually, when I'm at work, so I act like everybody hates the cops, but that's not true because I actually have to carry cash because what happens is I go out to eat. Yep. And probably 75% of the time in the town I live in, somebody pays for that food. But the problem becomes I was going to pay with a credit card. So now I can't tip my waitress and I have no cash. And then I'm embarrassed.
That's a really good way to round out this section of we're bitching about everything. So this is a really good way to round out this whole people assume thing. And I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back here, but I'm just pointing out.
Josh had to buy me my coffee the next day.
The next time we went, somebody bought, paid for our food, which was awesome. And thank you for whoever you are. You're probably not listening to this show, but thank you.
Yep.
We couldn't tip, so we gave her a tip. Don't mix your meth with wasp spray. And the waitress,
she asked for a life tip.
She asked for a life tip, and Scott said, "Don't mix your meth with wasp spray," which is actually a very good tip
because it will make you crazy.
Because it'll make you insane, and then you'll eat your face. But to round this out, when we went back the next day, this is how sexist and racist and mean we are as cops. Not only did we tip our waitress,
we gave her some meth.
Yeah, here's some meth.
So we not only did we tip the waitress that we had Friday, I found the waitress from Thursday and gave her the tip that we should have given her Thursday. So we did our good deed we made it right. And
it's easy to tip people because they were awesomely friendly and they did a great job. Restaurant. Great job. Can't awesome. Recommend their establishment enough. Super nice.
So now that we're done, griping about what happened to us in our lives, Ralph or Chuck, you guys got anything interesting going on this week?
No, working on Brace Cordova and just had a pretty good Father's Day and got my first 1-star review. I talked to you guys about that.
Oh, we love 1-star reviews.
But yeah, no, nothing special.
Yeah, a couple of things. I've today an anthology with one of my short stories came out. Rhett Bruno's At the Helm 4, yeah.
I didn't know you had a story in that.
It's a reprint story, but
okay.
You know, it's nice for it to have another home. Nice for it to sort of move house to a different condo, I suppose. So yeah, that's like one piece of news. The other thing, I had a really just random, really nice email that kind of makes your day as a writer. So I'd been sort of struggling with a little bit of writer's block, and then someone just randomly sent me such a lovely email. It just it just sort of, you know, makes you remember why you do it. So that I really, you know, I was really made up about that. Other than that, just sort of like trucking away on it, really, because I'm writing 3 books in a series. It's like before I even release one, it's like I've not really got much.
It takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah. Because you're aiming for that rapid release, right?
Yeah. So it means I haven't actually got much sort of to show at the moment. Still cracking on with it. What about you, Scott? What you got?
I started watching Falling Skies last night for the first time. So yesterday was Father's Day, yes? I think it was.
Yep.
So we did a lot of stuff, and actually I worked all day, and I came home, and my family was all off at my in-laws doing Father's Day, and I came home and it was just empty. I was like, well, I guess I'll write. So I wrote for a while, got some words in, but then she comes home and we do all the kind of family stuff, and she says, well, let's watch a movie that you want to watch. And so I picked out Falling Skies because I've been wanting to watch that for a while, and nobody obviously knows my wife, but she was, you know, getting ready, piddling around the house, and I queue up the movie, and I watch about the first 2 scenes. I'm like, this is not for you, because she can't handle the stress. She hates it. Like, so one day we're going to a movie, the one we wanted to watch wasn't available, so she says, let's go watch John Wick 2. That looks good.
Oh no!
I think she literally watched my shoulder for the show, you know, because she had her head on my shoulder, because that was it. She was done with it, but she hung in there for the whole thing, and we watched the whole show, which was one of those, you know, one-man killing machine movies. But so I started watching Falling Sky. I like it. It's pretty good.
You're talking about the TV series, are you? Not the,
yeah.
Sorry.
The aliens and eating people's faces and stuff. And I've been listening to Eye of the World, which is the first in the Wheel of Time series. Yeah, and obviously being sexist.
Oh, don't set him off again. Please.
No, but the thing was, I listened to it a few times, years and years ago, and I listened up to, I think, book 8 before I eventually got frustrated with them coming out so slow or whatever. And I remembered that I didn't like it as much as everybody liked it. And I started listening to it again because of the podcast, and I'm loving it now. I don't know what the deal is. It's like my 4th time through it, and I'm just really enjoying it. Of course, I was mowing the yard when I was listening to it, so that anything is better than just mowing the yard.
You know, there's a lot of good stuff in the book. A lot of stuff that Hank and I talked about. We recorded another show this morning, and some of the stuff that's like some neat things that they aren't really explained, and maybe they will be. That you can see kind of some references to some modern day technology that is now ancient and forgotten about in the series. So I just finished listening to the first book today, and I started the second book. However, and I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or not, but I got the pre-recordings for the Terra Nova 2-book series from Podium.
Oh my God.
Luke Daniels, look, he's a phenomenal reader, but he did a phenomenal job on this audiobook. And there's a couple characters where I'm like, did he read the characters right? Because so I'll just put it out there. There's a German doctor, right? And when I wrote it, I wrote all of his dialogue phonetically, right? So like Z, Zat, and all that, like really like hard German accent, right? Yeah. Richard completely hated it. He said, nope, cut that out. The readers aren't going to like to read that, which I get it. It's kind of confusing.
In text, it might be kind of a no.
Yeah. But in reading it, Luke did the accent exactly how I read it, how I wrote it phonetically. And so I'm just sitting there like this shit-eating grin on my face, just like,
We need to get
in your face box.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's great.
I am creatively vindicated.
Yes, I cannot wait until it releases and I can listen to it on my phone on the audio app, because it comes in sections. So you've got to like, listen through one section, then find the next one and click it on. But it's super cool. I think it's going to be a really, really.
I may take the day off from work to listen to that book when it comes out. I'm just gonna.
It's really
I'll just tell my wife I'm going to work, and then I'll go sit in a parking lot and listen to your entire audiobook straight through. Ha! Take that, universe! I'm listening to an audiobook all day.
That's just drive around like Nick Cole, listening to it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's right.
Christy Johnson wants to talk about Firefly.
And you can.
I can talk about Firefly.
We can always talk about Firefly.
Now, series keep going, and the further seasons mess it up. Hear me out. Maybe it's a good thing. Ultimately, Firefly was canceled before it was destroyed.
We could talk about
I actually.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I actually agree with.
I could see that,
on this to a point, because so we talked about Babylon 5 the other day, and how the first season, half of the season, like the first half of the season is like blah, but then when you get through the halfway season mark of season 1 and it starts that arc with the Zahadum arc or whatever, right? Like once it starts the shadows and the Vorlons, once it starts that arc through the rest of the season, and then 2 and 3 and then through 4, like that 3.5 season arc for Babylon 5 is pretty much the most epic television you can get, with the exception of maybe the new Battlestar Galactica. But then when you have season 5,
14 years old,
and then you have season 5 of Babylon 5 that I haven't even watched the whole season, because it just bores me after that epic arc that it was. So I can see.
I remember that being particularly rubbish. I remember, like on the notes of BSG, Battlestar Galactica, I think one of the best things that happened was, in many ways, that because originally they wanted it as a 5-season show, and then they got told, right, season 4 is your last season, and that final season was so tight there wasn't an ounce of fat on it, and it just built to such a crescendo. By the end of it, it's like, and then that final episode gave you everything you wanted. A little bit of emotion, it gave you a big battle, obviously, but then still they managed about half an hour solid of just saying goodbye to the characters.
Right, had that closure.
You didn't need any more. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd always watch a Battlestar Galactica series, but just because it's BSG. But I came out of that thinking, I don't need any more. I'm done. I love this show, but I don't need to see anything else.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that they did, with the movie Serenity coming. The movie Serenity, it kind of starts before the series, and then it ends after, obviously. So it was kind of a like bookend to the series to kind of give the whole thing closure, right? But I agree with her. I think, first of all, I think if they would have gone into season 2, had they not canceled it after the first season, it would have caught on, right? Like it would have been like boom,
before
exploded.
Well, that's usually the way Joss Whedon stuff works. He always takes a season to sort of build momentum and kind of introduce everything, and it's always with all of his shows, it's that second season where shit kicks off.
Well, why did Firefly end?
It didn't have the ratings. It didn't have the ratings, and I don't.
Well, they aired them out of order. Right. I mean, they aired like episode 3 is the pilot, and that's not the way it was written or shot. And then they just jacked it up, and there was
a whole bunch of things. And there was a whole bunch of things that kind of added to the failure. Like there was a lack of advertising. There was another show that got released basically the same time that show got released, and the ratings were competing against each other. And it was like Chuck said, it got released out of order because they didn't think that the introductory episode had enough tension in it, so they did it in used episode 3 instead of episode 1, and it gets all kind of clustered, right? But I think had it gone into season 2, it would have picked up, it would have kept going, and like Christy is saying, you could have a Babylon 5 season 5 type thing where you get into too many seasons and now it's just lost in whatever you're trying to do with it. So
like The Walking Dead.
Yeah, and I stopped watching The Walking Dead after like season 3 because it was just a whole bunch of zombie killing and whatever. I'm sure people are going to yell at me.
I think
rinse and repeat, wasn't it? So I mean, they've done the same storyline 3 times with coming across a.
I think about 5, 6, and 7. We're just about done with that. But we can move on. This is not a zombie show. This is a whatever.
What is this show, Scott? I don't even know that we have a good.
We are meandering. This is the meandering.
Let's all define the show.
Okay, well,
B5 could stand a really good Battlestar Galactica style reboot.
Yes,
with the modern TV technology and the effects.
I'm okay
and
with
stuff.
that.
Just take it, tweak the story some, so it's not the old story just done over.
Right.
But just
I'd be okay with that.
And write 5 seasons worth of story like Straczynski did.
Yeah,
just going with that in mind and saying after.
So that's
5,
a lot of.
That's
something that a lot of people don't.
I just remember one of the best episodes. Is it the one where the Earth Civil War properly kicks off, and the Earth destroyers come to Babylon 5? That was just that was one of the best hours of TV I've seen, and you've got the whole moral dilemma of them shooting down friends and family and whatnot. And I'm going to go watch that episode.
So
see you later, guys.
A lot of people don't know this, and Bart of Today said Keystroke Medium the series, which hey, we're in season 3. So a lot of people don't know that Michael.
Somebody
J.
has to die to make the series good, though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, let's kill off Scott real quick. If Michael J. Straczynski, he actually wrote that entire thing before they filmed it. He had the entire plot arc of the whole Shadows of Vorlon arc. He had that entire thing written before they shot episode 1. Yeah. And it showed, because you can go back and look at the episodes and say, bam, 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 bam. It all matches. It all lines up. It's not like they got lost somewhere and they had to create let's create something to make it work. They just worked. But before we move on, I want to read the show sponsor for this week before I forget, because I almost did. And I told Drew that we would do this last week, and I forgot that we had a different one. So we're going to do it this week, just because I'm a great guy. And one of the viewers of today's show edited this book, Ellen Campbell, and this is Skye Byrn by Drew Avera. His latest release, which released the 1st of June, so it's been out 18 days. Skye Byrn, revenge is a dish best served with 2 smoking barrels. Doing a favor for her mentors, Sammy P, Skye Byrn runs in one of the usual suspects on Terra, a small-time crunkhead named Trudy, another one of Sammy's works in progress. Then a crime lord's bomb rocks the station, and Skye's world will never be whole again. Determined to find the bomber and put it into their takeover attempt and their existence, Skye enlists an unlikely ally, Trudy. As the station descends into madness, she finds herself in the fight of her life. If she fails to stop the takeover, she'll be just another victim of the growing body count. Skye brings the heat, and there's no price she won't pay for vengeance.
I think it's interesting that we're talking about Babylon 5, and now we're this book. Our show sponsor is, on the station there, and just going crazy.
That's right. Awesome. That is Skye Byrn by Drew Avera. It's on Amazon right now. You should buy it because I said so, and I am not sexist. So you have to do what I say just based on that information alone.
It's like a Jedi thing. These are
like a Jedi thing. Your Jedi tricks are don't work on me. There's the link in the live chat. It'll be in the show notes as well. Great book, and Drew is a good friend of the show. So do him a favor, go pick it up, leave a review. And
currently protecting our country against all threats.
In the Navy. Dun, 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 in the Navy. Oh, you guys don't know that song?
I know that song because I'm an
old. So here's a question for you, Josh.
I know that song because I'm old.
Yeah. Ready, go, Ralph.
I'm just thinking, on the plotting line, a seamless segue.
Good job.
Straczynski, because of sorry, I'm going to bask in my own self-glorification. So when you've got someone like Michael J. Straczynski, who clearly plots everything out, how would you think that he would perhaps plot something so epic and long? God,
Ralph, you are a professional. I mean, like straight professional right now. You're not even chewing on your microphone today. So, yes.
That was really awesome.
So yeah, I wanted to mention too, before I started talking about my yellow page goodness, that I got to do one of the coolest things I've ever got to do. I was invited to help one of our longtime viewers and friends of the show was having some issues with plotting and planning her next series, and she asked if I would help her.
Is this a girl?
Nailed it. It is a girl.
So
it is a girl.
Come in and you've helped.
Yes.
You've sorted out all of
Stop it.
Yes. So, I was able to talk with her this morning about her series and kind of give her some ideas on what my thoughts were for what she was telling me. But it was a really cool experience. I've never been asked to help plot somebody's novel. Just, hey, let's sit down and do it. I thought that was neat. I am very grateful for that. I was very honored to be asked by that. So I won't embarrass her here. I'm sure she's watching, but I won't embarrass her here. But thank you for asking me. It was a really cool experience. And hopefully I didn't ramble on for a whole long while and you'll ask me to talk about it again. So
you're good at breaking down the beats, though, because we did that one episode where we did some.
Oh yeah, the Dark Landing.
And that was actually one of the most fun books I ever wrote. Was just banging out that outline. So it's awesome.
So one of the things that while we're talking about planning, I've got my actual notebook here. This is my actual notes.
Actual real life certified
Josh Hayes
grass-fed range raised notebook.
Notebook here.
Yellow pads all the way, buddy.
Yeah, legal pads. So I decided to do it on legal pads. I was doing it on like just regular notebooks, but I found that legal pads was a little easier and I could just scribble a whole lot and I didn't have to worry about holding it open. So this is, I've got actually 2 notebooks for the series. And this is a epic fantasy series that myself and Jamie Castle are kind of working on and fleshing out. And this is the first series that I've actually talked about and thought out and planned. We've actually had like probably 8 hours worth of conversation and haven't really written anything in the book yet. And so all of this is ideas for plot and character, which I'm sure everybody does. So I'm probably not breaking any wheels or reinventing the wheel here, but I took my process that I learned from Richard Fox and doing our collaborations on Terra Nova and I've thrown that into my outline building. And basically what I've done is there are some like really big overall ideas here that I have written down, but also there's some character notes in there. And so what I've done is I chose one character and then completely went through that character's arc separate by itself. Because I think what a lot of people tend to do when they're planning books and when they're trying to make this epic sweeping thing is they're trying to throw everything into the book at the same time and not focus on the little things that make people read the book. And this came up in a conversation I had with Hank about why I reread The Song of Ice and Fire so many times. And Scott, you can probably agree with me on this. The reason I go back and reread those books is because of the characters. It has nothing to do with the plot. It's all the characters and living with them and experiencing what they're experiencing. So I took that into
people
my
are
note
interesting.
building.
Plots are just what happens.
Exactly my point. So when I went into this, probably half of this notebook is notes for character arc. And the other thing I did was for every 2 things that I had a note about or 3 things that I had a note about, I forced myself to put those 3 things into one scene. So if I had 3 cool things that I wanted to show about this character, I'm forcing myself to tell 3 of those in one scene. And so you have, so this came up a lot when we were reading the Wheel of Time, is in the Wheel of Time, there's a lot of walking, and there probably isn't. That's just how we interpret it. But there's a lot of walking, and sometimes there's not a lot of action. And I think a lot of people get bogged down in,
same thing with the Dark Tower trilogy or series.
Exactly, absolutely, with the Dark Tower, like
going down the beam.
Song of Susanna. I don't think that anything happened in the Song of Susanna at all.
The Wizard, what is it? The Wizards of Glass or Drawing of the Three. They basically are on a beach for like 700 pages, eating crabs and not getting any green vegetables.
Yep. So what I did was and so I purposely went through when I'm doing this to make the character as interesting as possible while also pushing the storyline ahead. And so Bard of Today asks, how do you write a character arc apart from writing and plotting the story? So in epic fantasy and the story we're trying to tell, and I'm going to use Game of Thrones as a reference only because everybody knows the TV show, or a lot of people know the TV show, so it's the easiest thing to liken to, right? So in Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire, is zombies in the Middle Ages. That's it.
Yes.
That's the main point of a Game of Thrones, is zombies in the Middle Ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you break that down even further and you go, so what do the characters have to do with that? So with, he said he haven't watched it. Okay. Well, I don't know how to. So, spoiler alert, it's zombies in the Middle Ages.
Dragons.
But what really pushes that forward is the character stories.
Well, they have to make decisions, and they're always hard, impossible decisions. The harder, the more impossible the decision the characters have to make, the more interesting the story will be, period.
Right. So I'll go really quick and just kind of go through the arc that I've created for one character and kind of how it speaks to the book, and then you'll see kind of my intent here. So I can't remember which author said it. I think it was Sanderson, but basically he was like, I want to put a character in a field with one tree, and I want to chase them with a whole bunch of lions, and they're going to run up into that tree to get away from the lions, and then we're going to set the tree on fire. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically it, right? So with this character, when I originally thought about her, she was chasing these people that had assassinated her father, and her father's the king of this kingdom. And I started thinking about, why are people going to care that she's after these assassins? Why are they going to care that her father died? Why are they going to care that she's going to kill them? And do I need to illustrate all of that? And my answer is yes. We need to care about these characters before they do anything cool, right? And so I kind of backtracked a little bit, and I said, okay, so she's going to be a fighter. That has to mean something in her character, in her depth of a character. So that means something to her. So let's have her try to apply to this order. She's in line to get to this, for the lack of a better term, these order of guards, right? They dedicate their life to this order. And in order to dedicate your life to this order, you have to renounce everything else. And so you have to renounce your family, you have to renounce your faith, you have to renounce everything and dedicate black coffee and dedicate everything to this purpose, right? And you have to do that before you're accepted, right? So she does it. She renounces everything. She renounces her family, which is the royal family. She renounces her whole thing to be accepted. And then she's going to start these trials to be accepted, right? So then we have a little bit of character building there, and then we move on to where we're talking about some other things that aren't really important to her character arc, but they're important to the story. So I'm going to skip over that and get to the other important things that are important to her character. A couple of scenes later, we have a scene where her father is now killed, and she wants to go after the people that killed her father, and she believes that it's this group of people that were visiting, but it's not them, right? But the leader of the order says, if you go after these people for revenge, you are not going to be eligible to be in this order. And she decides to go after the assassins.
She makes a hard choice.
She makes the hard choice. So not only did she renounce her crown and the lineage and her family, but now she has renounced the thing that she worked her entire life to go chase after this other thing. Also, I should mention that she's got this telepathic tiger pet that's with her. Awesome. They get into some fights. It's really neat. It's cool.
I like telepathic tigers.
Right. While she's tracking these group of assassins, she runs into a group of brigands. Basically, they have a fight. She beats them. She embarrasses them. She presses on. We think it's nothing. We keep moving. She kills the people that she thinks responsible. After that happens, she's on her way back to the kingdom. She runs into these band of brigands again. But now the kingdom's different. While she's been gone, there's been a whole bunch of stuff happening in the kingdom. There's been some uprising, and now these brigands are kind of like the in-charge people now. They have more people with them that she doesn't realize, and they kill her cat, and they almost kill her. And so she escapes barely, and then when she gets back to the kingdom, it's no longer her kingdom. There's been a civil war, and her family has been ostracized, and now she's a fugitive. So... and that's basically where we're going to end the book, on her arc. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens with other characters that will feed into the rest of this, right? But we take a character at the peak of their life, and it's going exactly the way that they think it's going to go, and then we just kick her. Then keep kicking her and keep kicking her until you don't think that you can kick her anymore. And then,
like Arya in Game of Thrones is like, you just
exactly
don't think, how is this 11-year-old going to survive all this horrible stuff, make all these horrible decisions, and do all these horrible things?
Somebody once said,
but somehow she keeps making
main characters in the real world. If they don't try to kill you, you did something wrong.
Yeah,
because make them miserable.
Well, I think with Arya, one of the really interesting things, and when I've only watched the TV show, I've not read the books, but you've got Arya, and you follow her, but you follow her on her own. So you see her with the family for few episodes, and then for whatever it is, 6 seasons, 7 seasons, whatever it is, she's away from her family, and then it's only when she comes back to family you realise how much she's changed.
Yes,
and it's all consistent with what all the events that she's underwent, but suddenly you see how cold and calculating she's been forced to become to survive in that world. And I think there's going to be, obviously we're all waiting to find out what's going to come of that, but it's going to be interesting times.
And to answer Bard's question about, his question is, so you build the story around character arcs? Yes. So I have a huge overarching thing that I want to tell about this world, and it's big, and there's magic, and there's a lot of things, and it's earth-shattering proportions, right? Like these end of the world type stories. But every story is an end of the world type story, and you could say she's got to save the world, but every story is somebody that has this big event, like in epic fantasy or in sci-fi. If they don't do something, the world's going to end, right? So what's really going to push the reader through the story is the character,
right?
And it's
interest in the character. So
it's the dilemma they face, because if you just say this person has to do something to save the world, you're like, well, of course they're going to save the world, that's the right thing to do. But if you say you can save the world or your mother, now you got a hard decision to make.
Well, and they have to care. It's a lot easier to make a human being reader care about a character who feels like another human being than it is to make a reader care about an entire setting.
Right.
The plot, the story is going to be, we have to save the world. But really, I think readers genuinely just care about that person that's trying to save the world. They're a lot more invested in her fate as opposed to the fate of the larger setting.
Well, you know, and we talk.
Well, you look at something like The Martian. The Martian, for example. The Martian is it's just about one guy just trying to survive, and part of it is sort of like, you know, you get invested in like all of his little problem-solving events that he has to do to make it home. But a lot of it's just his character making it through, and like you want him to survive, you want him to crack on, but he's not trying to save the world. He's just trying to save himself.
Right.
So sometimes,
I think that was the big appeal of
that kind of is his world,
right?
within the context of that story, though.
Oh well, yeah, I guess so. But,
well, yeah, and we kind of knocked on
that.
we kind of knocked on The Walking Dead for a little bit, but that's why season 1 and season 2 of The Walking Dead, and I think season 3 also, were so popular, is because of the human characters and what they were doing.
Right.
And I think you could really almost care less about the zombies. And
Exactly.
Well, the zombies in The Walking Dead are just a force of nature, aren't they? They're not.
Yeah, they're like
Right.
a storm that you're trying
Zombies,
to
zombies, orcs, stormtroopers, battle droids, bugs. It's all the same thing.
right.
Well, one of the things a show I really liked was Spartacus. I don't know whether any of you guys caught it. But,
That was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
Fantastic show. And one of the things I really liked at the end, so you had it's almost like the contrary of your argument, but I'll kind of come back round to it, is that you've got a set of really strong characters, both goodies and baddies, and in their own, and you follow the goodies and baddies arcs, and sometimes you even sympathise with the bad guys and you know, the dilemmas and that they went through. But obviously, your hero was Spartacus, and you followed him through it, and you expect him, he's going to line up and he's going to have like an epic fight with like the main bad guy, and he'll either win or he'll lose, and you know, that'll be that. He has the epic fight, and then it cracks on, and it's not one of the named characters that gets him. It's just the inevitability of the Roman Empire descending on him. It was just a foot soldier which gets him in the end, or a group of foot soldiers. And so it's almost contrary to your argument. But again, it's something like, you know, it's this guy stood there trying to defy an empire pretty much on his own by that point. I absolutely love that kind of epic nature of it.
Well, and it just comes to your life decisions, right? So, like, I love the death of Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, brutal.
His death, along with, so all the other deaths are like, you know, like really, well, not all of them, but they're just like, holy crap, I can't believe that happened, or that really made a significant impact in the series. It
really changes Daenerys, though, and it makes her who she becomes.
It really does. But because the thing that I thought was so cool about it, and spoiler alert, so if you haven't seen it and you want to read the books and you haven't, mute this part for 30 seconds. So the really cool thing about Khal Drogo's death is that it wasn't spectacular.
Right.
It all it was literally a scratch that basically got infected.
That could be a net, just like John Candy in a Vacation movie. That BB could be a nasty infection and you could die.
Right. But it's true. But that is true to life. Like, not everybody's death has to be this big, spectacular event that happens. Yeah. Some people just die on accident. You fall off you trip on a curb and you land and you break your neck and you die. Like,
but you know, I think that was kind of the point.
Exactly.
Point of such a powerful character being taken down by something so simple. That was Martin setting up the fact that this is a realistic setting because shit like that does happen, and B,
because most people die to
life is cheap in his books. Anybody could die at any time. You know, Red Wedding, go from there. That's as far as I got in the books. But
we should do a whole episode on the Red Wedding.
Right. He was really setting up that expectation for everybody that, hey, you may like somebody, but you know what? Don't get cocky because they could be gone that fast.
Oh yeah.
There's very few shows. It's probably one of the first of the major shows anyway, where literally no one is safe. And once they sort of broke that mold, it was like it was something that was grabbed with both hands, wasn't it? By many shows. I absolutely loved. There's a couple of shows recently that I loved. Say shows, but books as well. But The Expanse. you got one major spoiler alert, but a major character dies midway through the second series, and you're like,
Right.
Oh, well, crikey. Or there's Discovery as well, Star Trek Discovery. I'm not a big Trekkie despite being a science fiction geek, but I love the way that you look at that and no one is safe. No one gets an edge, whereas sort of like, say, the older Star Treks, the reason why I didn't like them was because you thought, right, the primary crew, none of them are going to die.
It's very different feel to those original series from Discovery.
That's why the red shirts exist, so that they can legitimately kill someone off.
Right.
Yeah.
And so kind of to bring us full circle here when we're talking about characters and plotting, and Bart asked, do I plot the character arcs to plot the story? So in our particular collaboration, there's 4 characters that are going to be 4 main POV characters, and we're paying attention to their stories individually so we can give them all equal weight so that they all matter and that they all are interesting and exciting to read, while at the same time pushing the reader inevitably to the ultimate conclusion that we want of the overall series. And I think that Martin did that very well in Song of Ice and Fire. I think that Sanderson does that really well. Hopefully we'll see that Jordan does that with A Wheel of Time. And I think I can't imagine that it doesn't happen that way with the vastness of his fans and his readership that just proclaim that The Wheel of Time is just the best series ever written, right? So there's obviously some weight to that. So hopefully that we get to that point while we're reading it. But again, I think maybe one of the things we could do, or what I could do,
is amazing, because I know people that have literally read the Wheel of Time series every year for their entire adult life.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I read the first 5, I think. And they were good, but I don't know that I would go so far as to say the best in history.
Right.
Well, I'm not a fantasy fan. I've read 4 or 5 of them, something like that. And the only thing is, I remember them getting a little bit samey. So I can't remember what the baddie lieutenants were, but they were. There was like a group of them, and it became sort of like they were knocking off one and then another and then another.
Right.
But it was generally a good series.
I like the IEL.
I think
they're awesome.
And a lot of people have actually said that about the IEL.
Sexist, though. It was a little bit sexist. How guys couldn't use magic without going mad. I thought that was horrendous.
So maybe one of the things I might consider doing as we move through the series, because I'm nowhere near close to writing it. I probably won't start writing it in earnest till next year sometime. But maybe one of the things I could do as we start writing it in earnest is to do a series of shows where we talk about how we plan out the individual characters and how we write the individual characters and how we pull it all together, and then save it until after we release it, or we can do it before too, and then just kind of walk through our planning process to give people that are interested insight into how we did it. It may not be the best. It may not be, there's not going to be a woman because I'm a guy, but it might be
the main character of half your books are women. But
yeah, that's it. The main character, this one's a chick. And the main character, Terra Nova's a woman. And
chick is a derogatory term, John.
Why would you say
that?
You're such an asshole.
I think we're going to challenge you on this one.
Do I just need to stop now? Just pick up my headphones and walk right the fuck off the camera. For shit's sake. My name is Josh Hayes, and I'm a flaming sexist. I'm sorry.
Let's roll it back for just a second. I do want to say one thing, because we're a little bit over. But I know that, we got all fired up on these comments and people that made kind of their arguments. But the Reddit thread got you guys got 13 or 1,400 downloads, right, of your podcast.
Oh, yeah, in one day.
Right, in one day you got 1,400 downloads, but I would bet you that 99% of those are people who listened to it and enjoyed the premise and did all that stuff. It's easy to get. It's just like when you get a 1-star review, you think the world has ended, but you totally disregard the other 75 good reviews that you got on your book, you know, or all this positive stuff, or the email you got where somebody says, you know, you changed my life, because, you know, I've talked to several authors that have had people email them that talk about the kind of literally the life-changing things that being able to read books has had for them, because like, you know, maybe they're sick, or they can't do much, or they're reading, or some other reason that it's been really, you know, affected them in a positive way. It's easy to disregard the positive. I don't know why. It's human nature.
But you can't do anything about it.
Right, but
somebody points out something that's supposed to be a flaw, you can feel motivated to correct that. Yeah, flaw.
You get defensive about that.
Right.
It's hard to be really thankful and appreciative of all the positive that we get. And earlier when I was talking about, you know, we had one person that wrote this kind of assumptive or presumptive comment that we should, you know, act a certain way, but I wanted to bring back that most people, you know, it almost gets to the point where I feel kind of awkward, because I'll have hundreds of people in a month come and tell me, hey, thank you for what you do. You know, but that one person that comes up and calls me, you know, a son of a bitch really gets under my skin. You know, go figure.
Yeah, but it's understandable. I mean, that's
right.
I can't imagine.
Because he is.
Well, you know, and I don't care. I'm like, I want to say, you're a son of a bitch, and I'll say, I don't care what you think. You know,
that's right.
My friends like me, my family likes me. I don't care what you think. Call me whatever you want.
See, what you need to do is try and track down that chick that left the card on your car, and just write on the back of it, "I do my best," and just leave it on her window.
And you know,
just write. I'm just gonna write no. Period.
And the thing is I think she honestly is motivated by a positive. That she's doing what she thinks is the right thing. She's not doing it maliciously. She just is making an assumption that kind of hurts my feelings. You know,
but I go back to that bad apple rule, because I think that a lot of people, they don't see a human being. They see a uniform.
Right. Oh yeah.
Did I remember all the YouTube video? I mean, I even touched on this in the book I just wrote. They see all the YouTube videos and all the negative shit, because all the bad apples get all the press. And then that's what they've got in their head. You know, they don't realize that 99% of you are you're just folks trying to do the best you can, like everybody else. You know?
I guarantee that when I walk into a scene or a place in uniform, people think they know me. They haven't spoken one word to me.
Right.
They think they know me. And so even the people I've known for years, they're like, "You write books? Oh my God." And they're like amazed. So you don't know people unless you take the time to get to know them.
So we've gone kind of long, but it's been a really fun conversation, and I don't want to cut it off, but I know some of us need to go to bed. There's two things to take away from this whole thing. One, there's always going to be naysayers, and if you like what you're doing and you feel that it is helpful to someone, even if it's to yourself, and you have fun doing it, then do it. You know, and there's always going to be people that don't like what you're doing, whether it's your books or the podcast or this show. I'm sure that there are people that have watched our show that have immediately clicked off and said, "I don't know what the hell these idiots are talking about. They're stupid, and I'm not going to listen to them." Okay, that's great. There's always going to be those people that are negative in your life, but remember that for every negative person that you have, there is at least 2 or 3 more positive influences that you can have in your life. And I hope that is one of the things that we can bring with this show, is always bringing a kind of a positive outlook to what we're doing, and hopefully to motivate and educate and entertain everyone that comes and hangs out with us during our shows, or that watches them after. And you know, you're not like Chuck. You're not the only one that gets a 1-star review, and that is something.
I got 1 or 2. One or two.
That is something that, you know, every author or every entertainer or creator deals with, is people that don't like their stuff, and that's something that, you know, everybody's just got to deal with. And
if you can't take it, you probably shouldn't be publishing books, because it's going to come.
Yep.
Somebody is not going to like you. That's part of being in public.
I'll be honest with you. I was actually excited because, I mean, I was sort of seeing how long I could go because I've been at this for like 3.5 years. I got 7 books out. I had yet to get a 1-star. And then when I clicked on my thing and I saw the 1-star, I was like, "Oh, cool! What did he say?
I'm legit.
I'm for real now.
I'm too legit.
You've now made it."
Yeah.
And I forgot my second point. So, everybody that come out and hang out with us tonight, thank you guys so much for supporting the show and coming and hanging out with us. We try to make it entertaining as possible. Sometimes we rant, sometimes we talk about nonsense. But I always have a good time. I know the guys always have a good time, and it's better when you all are here with us.
It is.
And as Guy Anthony DeMarco says, words go into Scrivener, and that is the words that we live by here. And JR, you don't have any say in that. So everybody,
also, I'd like to say that at least 0.01% of this show has a positive impact on somebody's brain. So it's worth it.
That's true.
One in somebody out of trouble for 1 hour on Monday nights.
So there is
that 1,000th person who watched it.
Every 10,000 person has a life-changing experience. From
if you're watching this show, then you're not robbing banks. So that's
right.
contribution.
Put down the crack pipe long enough to watch.
You're not smoking meth sprayed with wasp spray. So that's probably a definite win for us. We've all done our duty to society.
That is ridiculous. Let's see who we got coming on next week. We have.
That's going to be a good one, I think.
We have a Richard Fox special next week.
That's right.
Writers need to tune in for this one because he's going to share.
It's going to be kind
results.
of a collaborative roundtable, as it always is with Richard. And there's a lot of collaboration stuff going on. Chris Kennedy just announced his collaboration with Dave Weber.
Oh my God!
And that's
huge,
phenomenal. I think that's
big.
really, really
good job,
cool.
Chris.
After Richard, we have Mark Allen Idleheight coming on to talk about these Tigers series. He was first on in season 2, and he's coming back in a couple of weeks. I did confirm that Peter F. Hamilton is going to be in September this year, and working on Peter V. Brett, the author of the Demon Cycle, the Warded Man, and the Desert Spear. Some really, really good books.
Really want to get him on the show. That guy should be cool to talk to.
And Michael Kramer is still scheduled for the 23rd, so that'll be a fun show.
Also, there's a couple of guys. There's a couple of guys who just or have been writing a series which is about 9 books long. They've had a TV series that's gone on for 3 seasons. That TV series,
some sort of expansive type of show. I don't really know.
Yeah, that TV series was cancelled, unfortunately. However, very nicely, Amazon have picked it up again. We may well be having that. We may well be having this. I know it's a bit. I know it's a bit expansive.
You're trying to say that
we may well be.
How long? I want to know how long it took Ralph to get to
come
that.
up with that.
Yeah. Like how are we gonna hint at this?
So what you're trying to say is we're trying to get S.A. Corey on the show.
Yes, that's correct. And what I will say is that because I work shifts, I don't. It's only very rarely that I align with doing the show on the side. But I will take annual leave that night. I'm happy to burn up the last of my annual leave to do that show.
That's right. Hell yeah. So again, everybody that's hanging out with us, thank you. The show would not be possible or would be slightly less boring without you guys here. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. A big thank you to Lauren Moore for the show notes and helping us on Secret Project, and Kayleen for helping us for the audio version of the podcast, which I don't know if Kayleen did she had to have some magic. Like, I'm not sure what she did, right? But as soon as she took over the podcast, we went from 43 podcast downloads a day to like 75. And the day she took over the podcast, we had like 301 day. And now we're above 10,000 downloads for the year, which may be like
because she's
a small number to whatever. But that's all because of Kayleen, and she's a woman, and so
be a lesson.
We need more Kayleens on the show.
What does that tell you?
Sexist.
Ellen Campbell says, "Yay, chicks!"
Yay, chicks!
Can't say check.
That's right. Ellen can say chicks because she is one. So yeah, thank you, Kayleen. You're the best. And yeah. So for Chuck, Ralph, and Scott, I am Josh Hayes. We've been live on Keystroke Medium. Come back next week. We're going to talk about some reading. We're going to talk about some writing, and of course, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. You guys have a great night.
Laters.
Hasta la vista.